Hi, and welcome to my podcast. I'm your host, Corrine Powell. I'm an intuitive guide and the owner of Change Radically. My intention, both here and in private sessions, is to come alongside you in a way that feels safe and empowering. So many of us are experiencing similar things and feeling common emotions, but we won't know that unless we talk about it. You aren't supposed to have to go it alone. I specialize in helping people pleasers change patterns and create a life they feel good about. Life should not be consumed by doing things you feel obligated to do. Do you want to feel a lot less frustrated? Then stop living in a way that benefits everyone else at your expense. Empowered to Thrive is a place of safety. Conversations focus on topics that impact our mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Parenting comes up too, because I'm a mom to 4 kids, and it's natural for me to talk about the impact that has on life. Bottom line, you're always welcome here, no matter what type of day you're having. Your friends and their friends are welcome too. Please share the podcast. Let's create a place of community and connection that is saturated by authenticity and transparency. I'll start. Now, on to today's episode. I am so excited to have you here with me as we embark on Season 6 of Empowered to Thrive. Today, I have a special guest with me, Mesha. Mesha McKittrick is a mind and heart coach and the creator of the podcast Mindset Check. Through her brand, My Friend Mesha, she's a coach, social influencer, and a public speaker. Her passion is teaching people that they have more power than they think they do. She believes that what matters in life is not what happens. What matters in life is what you think about what happens. Mesha has been married to her boyfriend for 24 years. She has 3 boys and an angel girl, and she absolutely adores being their mom. She geeks out about the brain, quantum physics, heart intelligence, and loves to learn endlessly about these topics. She is a yogi inside and out, and if you put on a good beat, she can't help but dance. Paddle boarding and hiking add to her happiness. She knows that when we live inspired, it causes us to take actions that we otherwise would not have taken. It's important for her to help others find the power that is always inside of them. And you're going to hear from her today as she shares about how you can find the power that you carry within inside of yourself. So get ready for a fabulous episode full of heart.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks for having me, Corrine.
Yeah, so super happy to talk about heart, mind, connection, and all of the stories that you have to go along with that. So start wherever you feel led.
Okay, great. So I think I'll start by telling you a little bit about my podcast and giving you a glimpse at how that leads into everything that I do and what I really believe is so integral and needed for our human experience to be one of happiness and one of experiencing joy. And that there is definite pivotal points in our life that we get to choose that. And sometimes we don't realize it. And our brain, runs away from us and tries to run and control our life when we really need to be the ones that put on the brakes, and we have so much control in that area. And I love getting into the juices of that. So starting out, I'll just tell you a little bit of background with my podcast because it's kind of interesting. And it's just also coming from the angle that we go through a lot of things. Everybody goes through experiences in life that are individual and unique to you. And I believe that when we share our stories, we unlock the hearts of those that we share them with, even though their stories aren't the same. Somehow it gives them freedom and living also by learning about other people. So when I first set out to do my podcast, it's a podcast all about mindset and heart, as I've come into the space more. And I had 20 episodes outlined. And I sat down to do the first episode, right? Like I bought all the equipment and I felt like I was getting all of these downloads and all of this information. And I sat down to record and it was like hitting a brick wall. It was like fog or mud. It was just so thick. And I was like, what is the deal? What's the deal? If I'm feeling pulled and compelled and inspired to do this. And I feel like I'm getting all these downloads. Why am I now up against a wall when I'm actually sitting down to do it? Well, I like knew that there's a reason, right, for it. There's always a purpose in the fog. And so I took a little bit of a moment and stepped back and let a couple of days go by. And a couple of nights later, I was just laying in my bed and I heard the words, Mesha, it's because you're supposed to share your journal from when you were 15 and pregnant. And I was like, what? So, all in the same moment,
Mm.
I felt like I understood, but I also felt like I was asking the questions like, are you sure? I don't know about this. Like, like I just felt a little bit like, oh, I've never even read those journals back after I wrote them. And what in the world am I going to do about all the swear words in them? you know? So I just trusted. I just trusted and I started reading my journals. And then I would comment about the experiences and the things that I had learned back then, filling in the gaps, and then also the things that I would contribute now, being much older, much later in life, and seeing any wisdom or mindset that I had learned in my life since then that I could contribute to the story.
Mhm.
And by way of doing that, we sort of hold space for this young 14-year-old girl who goes through a really rocky relationship. I pivoted my whole life to then dedicate it to raising my little girl. And then throughout all of that, my little girl passed away.
Mm.
And so we go through grief on the podcast, and it's a really big story. We go through a lot of things around forgiveness. It's a really amazing look at just one person's life,
Yeah.
one person, because it's interesting when we dive really deep into one person's life, how somehow it brings to light things that are in our life, even though our stories are wildly different. We start to
Yeah.
see things differently, and again, we don't have to be, you know, completely in alignment or going through similar things to know that what we're really looking for is light in the darkness and joy in the struggle and all of those things, right, as we go
Mhm.
through.
Mhm.
Yeah. So ultimately, that's what the podcast is about. And then it evolves even more to where in season 2, which is what we're in now, my current husband of 24 years is now coming on the episodes and kind of sharing like his part of the story of how we came together, because it's a really great story. And because I was telling him in the first episode, I said to my husband, I was like, I just don't know. Like, I want to wrap it up with a great big bow and kind of just be done because like it was feeling a little bit exhausting to me to tell this story. And it was a lot to relive. There was a lot to relive,
Yeah.
when I was coming into the episodes where I knew, the heaviest were coming, it was like, I almost like dug my heels in the ground. Like, when you're taking a dog for a walk and the dog doesn't want to go, and you're
Mhm.
pulling on the leash. That's kind of what it felt like.
Mhm.
and but it was so glorious also because it was like, oh my word, there were angles that allowed in the retelling. Just I learned so much, and my family who hadn't worked through some of the things, they came to a great place with it. And then it's great because even like strangers and people who didn't have things go as well as I did. For example, when I told my parents that I was pregnant, 14 years old, sitting across from them, and we had woken my dad up to come up and hear the news. And, you know, he received it and he did something that I call the flat forehead syndrome, where he just placed his hand right across his forehead like this. He closed his eyes and he took a big deep breath and he sat there for a few minutes, totally quiet and silent, which is a beautiful lesson in and of itself. And then he looked me straight in the eyes and he said, Mesha, we are not the parents that are going to send you to Texas to live with a distant family relative so that we can pretend that this isn't happening. We are your family, and what you go through, we go through.
Hmm.
And then that whole night, he walked me through, you know, what other people in your life are, what are your friends going to do? And people are going to talk about you, and they're going to say bad and mean things behind your back. And what I really want you to do is just not to pay any attention to them, because they haven't been through anything hard yet.
Hmm.
And he said, that's not for you to worry about. I want you to grab the people who are in your corner and who are fighting for you, and hold on to those ones tightly, and give everybody else grace.
Hmm.
And so it was more of a choice for me to
Yeah.
then give them like, oh, I get it. Like, it's okay. You can be in the space that you're in. If you feel like you need to talk about me, or you need to make me a topic at your whatever. It was like all of this permission, right? And
Wow.
then he continued to just lift me up, and he continued to, like, both of my parents, but my dad was just very he was a little bit more proactive than my mom. My mom was very much, supporting and there. And I asked my mom later too, like, hey mom, like, isn't it interesting that whenever I talk, like, I have these stories about dad, but I don't really distinguish that my mom, like, wasn't there or anything. And I said, so what is your take on that? Like, why didn't you, like, have more to say or more to, and she's like, Mish, dad was so good at it and he just had it and I let him. And I
Hmm.
was like, oh my gosh, that's so much wisdom,
Hmm.
So, but the point of what I'm sharing with you is that sometimes women have had similar experiences or something else go on in their life that is hard when somebody else didn't respond to them as well. And, just by saying that there's a different way to do it, all of a sudden gives them all this freedom, right? And
Hmm.
you get a glimpse into, you have more power than you think you do.
Hmm.
And so in each episode on the podcast, that's what we take apart. We take apart one area and one thing to show and shine light on the areas that you actually have more power than you think you do, right here in this very moment, as you and I are talking, or you as the listener are listening. Like, you really do have more. And all we have to do is shine a little bit of light on that so that you can see it.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's impactful. Thank you for sharing. Hmm.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. And so from there, it just, the podcast, sharing the podcast. And then I also coach, and I am a mind and heart coach. And so I coach and talk a lot about our subconscious mind and how our subconscious mind can be our most loyal assistant ever. See, like, everything that's a part of your life right now is a part of your life because you created it by the beliefs that you have inside of your mind. And that, to some people, might feel like the most incredible thing that they've heard all day, and they agree and they just want to jump for joy and yes, all right. And some people might feel like it stabbed them in the heart. You're saying I created this? You're saying I did this? You're saying I would actually create this,
Hmm.
right? Like, the reality of what it is that they're living. And as much of a knife in the heart that can be, it's when you can really, really internalize it, you can also turn around and say, honey, that's freedom. Because even if it's not something you like right now, starting to understand that allows you to be in charge. It allows you to come in and make the changes that you can make. And it's not difficult when you do it inside of your mind.
Hmm.
We think it's all of this, like, blood, sweat, and tears. We think it's all of this sweat equity that we have to put into our life. And when we start to understand that it's really shifting our mind, it's shifting the way we think, it's shifting our beliefs that are held so deeply. And when we do that, we come into a different space, a different resonance, a different way to be. A ton about that in my coaching with the mind. And we also talk a lot about the heart. We talk about heart coherence, and heart coherence is this incredible tool. It's this way that you can bring your body into feeling, and you can create energy inside of you. So in the main course that I teach, the Power Up course, what we learn is we're learning all about the subconscious mind. We're learning about how powerful it becomes, and how, as our subconscious mind, when we teach it to be our most loyal assistant ever. That's the best nickname, I think, for our
Mhm.
subconscious mind, because when you get really deep and you understand that you actually have a belief around, maybe throw some things at me. Like, what do you think some of your listeners might have the most that they stumble with in their life, right? Like,
Mm. How do other people see me? Do I fit in? Do I measure
mm,
up? How do
mm,
people perceive me?
that's beautiful. And I actually have so many things to say around that, because I would say, initially, that there's a belief that's in your subconscious mind that is allowing you to worry about that. There's something, and you probably were given it when you were tiny, and that's part of the reason why we don't really need to hold any fear around what it is that we have, that we carry. All we need to do is start to be open about it, because when we
Right.
start to be open about it, we start to crack it open, and we say, guess what, I don't like this, and you don't have any business being here. And we're going to shift this, and we're going to alter this,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so if you can shift the belief inside of your subconscious mind, if you can dig down and find it, you can figure out what it is. And then you can go, okay, let's rearrange that. And we can rearrange the belief. And then all of a sudden, your life starts to go forward for you in a different way. And you've been able to let go of that. You've been able just to walk away from it, right? Before, I want to stay in this train of thought, but before we move forward, I want to address that in a little bit more, a deeper way, because I think that that is something that a lot of people worry about.
Mhm.
And like, going clear back to the story of my parents being, the way that they were, and they really did not worry about what the neighbors thought, right? And that for me was a moment when I was like 40, and I was at a pool with my sister-in-law, and we were sitting next to her friend. And I had a bunch of things that I was working on. I was actually planning my sister's wedding and helping with that. And I had a lot of things I was doing on my phone. But this woman started talking about her situation and her son. And it all signaled from my sister in law saying to her, hey, wait, remind me how old you are, you know? And she said, I don't even remember what her age was. Okay. But we'll just pretend it was 33. And she's like, but if you had asked me that 2 weeks ago, I would have told you I was 36. And she was like, wait, what? She's like, I just recently decided that I'm not going to lie about my age anymore, because she got pregnant when she was young, and she changed her age, and she started telling everybody she was a couple of years older so
Yeah.
that they would receive the news of her being, this young mom in a different way.
Yeah.
There's so many times we step on toes, and we accommodate the way that we think other people need to receive us.
Mm.
And there's nothing that needs to be there, right?
Right.
And I sat there and I was listening to her, and afterwards my sister-in-law said to me, Mish, why didn't you say anything? Because she knows my whole story and she knows what I'm about. And I was like, because Cass, she figured it out.
Mm.
She
Exactly.
already figured it out.
Yeah.
She already figured it out. And then I went home, and I had an interesting night where I was cooking dinner, and everybody was going to be home, but they weren't home yet. So it was silent while I was cooking dinner, which, how often do we get that, right?
Right.
And so it was, and I had a moment where I found myself in complete tears, just with overwhelming gratitude, because it was never something that I had to battle with. I never had to battle with worrying about what other people thought about me, because my parents already handed me the freedom, right?
Yeah.
So the thing that's interesting is that was a belief that was given to me that was good. It doesn't mean that all the beliefs I ever had were good, because they weren't.
Sure.
I've been working through money beliefs and all kinds of beliefs that we all kind of find ourselves up against,
Yeah.
right? Anything that isn't right in your life, that feels off to you or that doesn't feel good, it's there because there's a deeper belief that you have. not that somebody else has, about what's going on. So many times we think that it's the other person. And we say, well, they weren't taking care of me the right way, or they didn't handle life the right, or whatever. We think it's about them, but it never really is. It's about us. It's about us.
Mm-hmm.
And once we learn that and we lift that up, we raise that up, and we alter what's happening for us, all
Mm-hmm.
of a sudden, we alter the way that all of those interactions are around us.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
It's like what Eckhart Tolle says when he says, when we get the inside right, the outside falls into place. And it all does.
Mm-hmm.
It all falls completely into place. Right. And so just know that there's freedom. There's freedom, and we get to choose what our state is. So if you have deep-seated beliefs around any issue or problem or something that's going on in your life, you have the power to flip that. You have the power to change that, to bring something else. You have to let it go and to bring something else new in.
Mm-hmm.
It's an incredible thing that we get to do, but we do, it does take time to walk through it, but it's not difficult. But it takes a little bit of effort, but it's not like you need to go learn a new profession, or you need to, whatever it is,
Yeah.
it's not hard. It's simple. It's
Right.
simple. Yeah.
And the result, the byproduct is so wonderful. Like from what you're describing, it's
Yeah.
just what a trade.
Yeah. It's a juicy, beautiful state to live in that just feels expansive. And if there's anything that in your life doesn't feel like that, there's no reason for it not to. So, whatever convenient lie your brain tells you to keep you there, call it out.
Mm-hmm.
Start there and move into a space where you say, okay, I know this can be different, and I know that I have power around it.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually has nothing to do with the person, that I think is oppressing me or keeping me down or whatever that is about. Wherever we're shifting the blame outside of us, because it's true. It's human nature to want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once we start to accept that responsibility, we move forward very differently.
Super empowering. Can
Yeah.
feel it and hear it and taste it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's fun stuff. It's an incredible place to be in. It's conversation that I love to have. Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. So I meditate, and I have meditated for lots of years, and I've been a yogi since I was in my 20s, just love it. And it's added so much to my life. I would say that I've probably been a meditator for 5 years or maybe more before I found what heart coherence even was. And so to me, it's not the same thing as meditating, though you can experience heart coherence and meditation at the same time if you know what you're doing. Okay. And if you have a guide and someone to show you, right? So when I first experienced heart coherence, I was meditating, and my heart started to feel this energy, right? And I started to feel this incredible beat in my heart, and these cells like dancing across my chest. And it's interesting because not everybody feels heart coherence the same. And you feel it at different levels, I think, as you start to come into it, because heart coherence can also, to some people, feel simply like peace. And also it's interesting because even if you've never experienced it and known how to bring yourself to it in meditation before, you certainly have felt heart coherence in your life. It's just that you haven't known that you were experiencing that, and you probably weren't setting out to experience it on purpose. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? So a very loving moment that you have with another person or something, like you're experiencing heart coherence. But this is a state that we can teach ourselves to come into. And when we teach ourselves to come into this state on a daily basis, and we prime our soul so that we're sitting on sort of a teeter-totter of falling into heart coherence at every moment. Even if our eyes are open and we're doing the things that we're doing, all of a sudden we just take a few deep breaths and we're right in that state again. And there's so many benefits to heart coherence. You are more in tune with your intuition. You have a more clear mind. You have less frustration, overwhelm, stress, all of these things in your life. And there's reasons for that, because inside of our heart, we have neural pathways, and our heart connects to our brain in ways that it sends the messages to our brain faster than our brain sends to our heart. So we're getting more messages from our heart to our brain than
Mhm.
we are the opposite way.
Mhm.
And so essentially, if we can prime our heart to help us live in a certain way, in a certain state, then we can go through life differently as we move forward. And our life is ruled more by the feelings and the good that we are feeling in our heart. And then those things become a default way of feeling as well, which is another side point that's really great about heart coherence, because we in life have hard things that happen to us, and we very often can become like addicted to those negative feelings. We can become addicted to those stress hormones, the hormones that come from negativity. I mean, they are wildly potent, right? So a lot of times things will happen that are hard, and what happens is we fall into feeling stressed over those things, and then we're dictated by walking around with in life with a little brick in our heart all the time, everywhere we go. We're so addicted to stress. It's a pathway we know so quickly. We go to it fast with fast, right?
Yeah.
Overwhelm all the things. Like your kids do something and you just be like, "Oh," and you respond and you react and you're over all of the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's normal. Like it happens for a lot of people. But if you can redirect and teach yourself how to come into a different state, then all of a sudden you experience a different life. You experience something entirely different, where when you experience this heart coherence, all of a sudden you're teaching your body how to feel good, how to feel joy, how to feel happiness or gratitude. And those are stronger than the other feelings, the negative feelings. So you can't feel happiness and gratitude at the same time you're feeling anxiety and overwhelm. So all of a sudden you're resetting the patterns in your brain every single time you're tapping into heart coherence. And then because we have something called neuroplasticity that works for both our brain and our heart, we can mold the patterns and the habitual ways that we actually fall into.
Mm-hmm.
Is that making sense?
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Yes. So the state of what you're talking about is something that I'm familiar with, right?
Yeah.
That place that you described
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
I know that, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
and for me, sometimes I come to this place of knowing things that I don't know how I came to the place of knowing it, right? Like I don't have a
Yeah.
clear path, but what you're describing,
Yes.
my soul knows.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. And it's so interesting that the more you choose to tune in to that feeling, that then that guides your whole life. It can guide the way that you naturally wake up feeling,
Mm,
right? The way that you feel when even you experience something hard, you experience something difficult, or you get some bad news all of a sudden, you're so much more apt to handle that. Your battery's full, and
mm,
you can not only not react like a crazy person or freaking out or worrying or any of those things, you can then have your wits about you so that you can say, well, I'm actually a really capable person. So what can I do about this?
mhm.
And you can see opportunities and things that you were never able to see before, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what you're describing, I feel like is the same place that I've experienced or I see other people experience getting to through doing some of the inner work. So is
Hmm.
the heart coherence like a modality, or is this like, no, I've done other types of inner work and now here is a byproduct?
So I would say you don't have to do any inner work at all to
Okay.
do heart coherence at all. Does it process your inner work? Yes,
Yeah.
completely.
Okay. Okay.
Does it mean that you don't ever want to do any other work? No, you
Mm-hmm.
can. It's all
Mm-hmm.
up to you. It's
Mm-hmm.
what helps you and what guides you. But can you teach yourself a different state just by doing heart coherence? Absolutely. There's so many cool things about heart coherence to be able to know. So, one of the best things that I love about heart coherence is when you're in this state, you're emitting energy outside of your body. Like we emit energy from our heart that's 3 to 5 feet around us. And when
Mhm.
we're in a heart coherent state, we are creating coherence, which is a state and a feeling where we're more gathered, we think more clearly, we have more ability to lean into, like, we're feeling higher feelings, right? We're feeling love, and
Mhm.
we're releasing different hormones in our body that make us feel good and that bring harmony in our situations, whether you're talking about in your home or whether you're talking about where you work or wherever it is that you are spending your energy, right? You're influencing that. Well, the Heart Institute did a study where the the people that were kind of like the participants in the study didn't have any clue what heart coherence was, and they were in a room together, and they brought people who were in a state of heart coherence into the room, and they showed all of the people in the room come into a state of heart coherence
Mhm. Mhm.
because our state
Mhm.
affects the people around us.
Sure. Right. Mhm.
And so, if our state is affecting the people around us, and you are in a place where your home doesn't have as much harmony as you wish, or your kids are fighting, or you wish you had a better relationship with your spouse, or you wish, fill in the blank. I mean, we can have
Mhm.
wish lists all day long. If you're feeling any of that, isn't it amazing to look at how much power you have by dropping into heart coherence on a daily basis? And your simple influence of the energy that's emitting around your body without you doing anything else except for just
Yeah.
being responsible for your own state. And you walk around through your house and you affect every single person in your home. You affect every single person that you talk to on the phone, right? Because it's energy travels like that.
Mhm.
Energy is like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
So it's one of the most amazing things to me to take a look at with heart coherence. I'm just like, wow, doesn't everybody really truly need to know about this? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. It is. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Hmm.
So is that the I feel like you talked about the Heart Math
Hmm.
Institute. Can you tell me is this all connected?
Yeah, yeah. So once I found heart coherence, what it was maybe a couple, almost 2 years ago, I guess, at this point, and I found heart coherence, and I was like, I don't exactly know what I just felt, but I know I want to feel it all the time.
Uh-huh.
Right. And it's interesting to me too, because it was also the way that I feel like, the spirit, or I feel like divine, I feel like a divine presence. And so it felt similar. And so I knew that I needed to know the difference of how that felt for me. That
Mhm.
was really important for me.
Mhm.
And so I spent some time learning there, and being tutored and taught with that, which is so cool because I had cool things that I was able to understand in that arena. But then I still was just like, I don't really know what this is, but I just like it. And so I meditate and I go there every day, and then I started to learn about the Heart Math Institute. And a year after I felt heart coherence for the first time, I was in their training to become a heart math technician.
Okay.
So then I became a heart math technician through Heart Math Institute. And after learning that the Heart Math Institute, this is a state that they have studied for over 30 years, they have incredible research surrounding this. Like how impressive is it that there was a study that they did, and they put scenes or pictures up on a screen in front of you. And as they put those pictures out, they were either pictures that were very distressing, that would make people's hearts and bodies respond with like sweat and like it's awful. And there was pictures of love, and so they were measuring how people felt when they would see these pictures. what
Mm-hmm.
they started to notice is that the heart started signaling the feeling before they even displayed the picture. Your heart knows more
Yeah.
than you think, than you
Sure.
even realize.
Right.
And if your heart knows first, and your heart always has all of the answers, but we spend so much time in our brain being tripped by it and trying to figure life out with our brain. We have it backwards, right?
Yeah.
We have to learn how to go into our heart space and how to learn and to listen, right? Because that's a thing that you can do when you go into heart coherence. When you go into heart coherence, you can start to get that feeling, and then you can just listen. You can just listen for what your heart has to tell you, for
Mm-hmm.
what's supposed to be coming for you in your life,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's, to me, when I actually communicating the most, like with my spirit, and when I am communicating with receiving intuition.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes. I know what you're, I, I know what you're talking about, no,
yeah,
not intellectually. No.
yeah. But
Yeah.
your heart is
Yeah.
resonating,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
with
Yeah.
what I'm saying, and
Exactly. Yes.
it lights us up. It
Right.
lights us up because we go, what? You mean there's more to the way that I can be living right now? And it's incredible, right? And I
Right.
and all I have to do is, a lot of times people might say, well, like, okay, so then how do I get into heart coherence? Like, how do I do that? What do I do? Right? I teach a whole course on that. That's one of the things that
Mm-hmm.
I do. So I'm teaching a course at the end of September that's starting, and it's going to be very simple 6-week course on just teaching you all about the science behind heart coherence, all around, exactly like how to drop into the state. And then I'm so excited. We were talking a little bit before we started the podcast about how I've been working on my website, and part of that is creating all of these different meditations that walk you through heart coherence so that you have a place that you can go to practice all the time. And those meditations will be themed. So if you're a mom and you need encouragement, then there will be a packet for moms with encouragement. If you feel like you need a little bit of grounding in your life and you feel like you've been a little bit unstable, then there will be a packet for that, right? It's like I have all these ideas
Awesome. Yes.
firing
Great.
around, like different packets that you can buy for different themes that you're trying to achieve, or maybe you're trying to shift your attitude, or something that you're feeling that you're struggling with, or whatever it is, right? We'll be coming into
Mm-hmm.
something else. But there will be all of that also on my website. It's super fun stuff. And heart coherence is really just achieved by breathing and by feeling when you're in a state of meditation. And so to be
Mm-hmm.
walked through that so that you can
Mm-hmm.
find that space, to where your heart just starts to light up and you actually feel energy that feels like it wants to burst out of your chest. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, if anyone listening is interested in this, where can they find it?
So the easiest thing to do would probably be go into Instagram and just find me on Instagram, DM me, ask me if you're curious or whatever. It's also on Instagram. I'm My Friend Mesha, Mesha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I feel like you're igniting more hope because, you're the heart behind what you're saying, I feel like is similar to the heart that I speak from, but you're talking about something from a different angle. You're giving them another resource. And I do think it takes someone like ready to say, you know what, I'm going to stand in the resource that I have.
Hmm.
And yet here you are offering them, now here's the path, like, here I
Yeah.
can help
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
experience this as your normal. So i'm
Yeah.
i'm very excited, and I hope that people will take advantage of this. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good. Yeah. It's fantastic. Yeah. I would say ultimately just remember that no matter where you're at, that the more that you check into these beautiful feelings, the more you're teaching your body that you can. you
Mm,
know the more
yes.
that you're teaching your body, you're trumping the bad feelings. You're trumping and you're saying, hey, this is the new pattern I want you to feel, body, and let's move into this more often, and
Yes.
let's be intentional about that. And I would say It doesn't matter if that comes by way of doing something called heart coherence, which I think is the most powerful way to do that, or if it's by listening to a comedian, or whether it's calling a friend that you know will make you laugh, or if it's, checking into gratitude and writing down the three most beautiful things that you've seen in your day, or, writing a thank you note to someone. It doesn't matter how you check into the feeling. What matters is that you actually really feel it, that you're not faking it,
Mm-hmm.
and that you're teaching your body to come into something different.
Right. And then
Mhm.
you can remind yourself of, oh, I remember that place I was in. Like,
Yeah.
I love that, the
Mhm.
resource of it. Once
Mhm.
we've experienced it, we can remind ourselves,
Mhm.
remember
For
that
sure.
place? We can go back there.
Yeah.
The experience of anything like is so impactful, whether it's,
Yeah.
what we call positive or negative. But
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I think when we get down on ourselves and when we have those low moments, I think there's a huge part of us that's just forgetting who we are. We're just forgetting, we're forgetting. It's just a moment where we're feeling a little bit stripped dry. And all we have to do is bring good feelings back into that. And it changes the trajectory of everything. Just
mm,
bring intentional feelings. And the more that you learn to shift that state, the more it will be easy for you.
mm,
That it can happen so quickly. And sometimes you have to spend some time doing it. You have to, sometimes even somebody will tell you a joke that really is funny and you go, you're not laughing. And that's okay. But the more that you try, the more you try to shift, the more you try to shift, you'll come into something different.
yeah,
Yeah, it's amazing.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being here with us, Misha, and for
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah, of course. I'm so glad that you had me. It's fun.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, I wanted to highlight a few episodes that I previously recorded that you might also really enjoy listening to. From season 1, episode 7, Perspective Shift. From season 2, episode 11, You Are Loved. And from season 2, episode 22, Heart, Listen Up. So, again, those episodes will talk in depth further about some of the things that Misha and I talked about today. Well, we've come to the end of another episode. What did you think about what you heard? And what resonated with your heart? If you were touched by this episode, is there a friend that you can share it with? Remember, between now and when we speak again, that who you are is good. And I am so glad that you're alive.